The pressure group fighting against the introduction of genetically modified food sovereignty, Ghana, is making fresh demands on government to ensure that the mandatory labeling of all GM foods that come to Ghana is put in force. The demand is a shift from their demand for an outright rejection of GM foods over the years. So what has changed? Edwin Kwekuando Bafo is with the Communications Directorate of Food Sovereignty Ghana. He joins me in the studio for more. Edwin, it's good to have you. It's been a while.
Thank you very much for having me again.
So tell us, what has changed?
Well, actually, we have not abandoned our position against GMO. As you know, that we're in court right now. We started a substantive case against GMO in November 2017, and we'll be returning to court on the 31st of October.
Okay.
However, this new campaign is in line with ensuring that the rights of Ghanaians is respected.
Okay.
And we believe that Ghanaians have the right to know exactly what is in their food. In fact, it's quite interesting in that in the judgment on the last case that we had, you know, we sought an injunction on the release of cowpeas and rice, genetically modified cowpeas and rice.
Okay.
In 2015. And in the judgment, the Justice Sir Dennis Ajay stated in his judgment that the law is that GMOs must be differentiated from natural cause and organic, be labeled so that they empower consumers to
make the choice
and make the choice.
Okay.
This is the judgment given by the judge in the High Court of Ghana. So we are only following up to say that if the judge sees it fit and actually reiterates that the law is that GMOs must be differentiated from organic and natural cause, then Ghanaians deserve to know if they go to a shop and there's a product with GMO maize in it, or GMO sugar, or GMO rice, and so on and so forth. I think this is not a debatable issue. I think it's a very straight up issue and has to deal with transparency. I think that Ghanaians deserve a right to know. You deserve a right to know what to choose when you go to a store and to what.
But does it mean that you have evidence to prove that this is not being done, that the judgment given by the judge, as you say, is not being implemented?
Well, currently, as we speak, the guidelines that the FDA has do not cover the labeling of GMOs.
Okay.
So I believe that there's the 1992 under the 1992 Constitution, LI is 1541.
Okay.
Is where it deals with this, but there's no specific legislation on the labeling of GM foods.
Right.
And we believe that this is a natural right for Ghanaians to know.
So how far have you taken this, your position, I mean your demand? How far have you taken it? Are you talking to the FDA, for example?
We have presented our position paper to the FDA a few months ago because they engaged us. They wanted to find out our position on it, which we're happy about. But we let them know that we were clearly on a mandatory labeling regime. That means if any manufacturer is bringing in some containers of food into Ghana, it must be labeled if there are GMO contents in that food. We would not want to see the FDA encouraging a voluntary labeling system where if you're a manufacturer in China or in the USA or any country where we import from, you can end up selling your foods to Ghana and they contain GM ingredients, and Ghanaians cannot differentiate whether these foods actually contain GMOs or not. And it's interesting to know that recently, Monsanto, the biggest agribusiness company in the world, was fined over $280 million in a landmark case because now there's a direct relationship between glyphosate, which is their flagship chemical, and effects on health. So there's a gentleman in the USA who won damages worth $289 million. He was a janitor who used to work with this chemical, and he now has lymphoma. He's terminally ill with cancer. But the court finally has trapped them in the corner and they are now liable and they have had to pay. Now this opens a whole can of worms because you see, genetically modified foods and crops are engineered to tolerate these chemicals. So you find that where they spray these chemicals, everything around the plant dies, and it's only that plant that's able to live because the plant has been engineered to tolerate it. They're called herbicide tolerant and pesticide tolerant plants. So it's ironic to find out that the flagship chemical that Monsanto sells is injurious to health. And if we go the genetically modified way, these are the chemicals that have been engineered to complement these crops. On top of that, there is no consensus among the world scientific community on the safety of GMOs. Even in the USA, where GMOs were first introduced almost 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, about 23 or so, there's been no long-term epidemiological study on people consuming GMO and checking to see what has been the effect of this GMO consumption on their health.
Over the years.
So it is on the basis of industry research that a lot of people say that GMO foods are safe, but most independent research which has been peer-reviewed, and when we say peer-reviewed, we mean that other people of like mind can judge them, scientists of like mind and caliber. You'll find that, for instance, the most famous being Professor Eric Seralini in France, where he did a 2-year-long study on toxicity and found out that after the 4th month is when you saw cancerous tumors and cancerous growths forming in the lab rats that he tested. So
that means that if you ate GMO food, that you get to react after 4 months?
Well, the industry tests only go for 90 days. Okay. So they do a 90-day test and they tell you that there's nothing wrong with these foods. But the independent researchers have gone 2 years at least. Professor Eric Seralini
and realized that there are indeed effects.
And he was vindicated by a French court because Monsanto tried to rubbish his findings, and the French court vindicated his findings and found out that yes.
We're going back into the bigger picture of GMO, but I'd like us to just focus on your freshest demand for the labeling and wrap up with that. You've spoken to the FDA, you say. Did they give you any indication that gives you satisfaction that your demands are going to be met?
Well, we haven't heard any conclusion from them. We are aware that we are aware that they are deliberating on it. They've received our feedback, but we are concerned that it seems as if they may want to do a voluntary labeling regime.
But that's not what you want.
And that is not what any Ghanaian should accept. Absolutely not.
Okay.
The president asked us to be citizens and not spectators. And we stand up for every single home, every single Ghanaian child whose parents may not know all this science that is out there. To know that, listen, if you go and there's a GMO food on the label, at least if you want to choose to eat it, that is perfectly fine.
That's a choice that you make. Finally, let me find out from you how far you're willing to take this demand. I mean, you've been following through this GMO campaign for a very long time. And I'm wondering how, I mean, you must be frustrated. You must be tired by now.
We're not tired.
That's good. That's good. But then let me find out how far you're willing to take this specific demand, which I'm sure makes sense to a lot of Ghanaians. That give me the choice and let me choose if I want to eat GMO or not by labeling it. How far are you willing to take that?
We're willing to go as far as is possible within a legal, framework. The Constitution of Ghana allows us to seek remedies where we feel that our rights are being infringed upon. And I think that it would be a challenge for anybody to deny the right for Ghanaians to know what is actually in the content of the food that they're consuming. And so we believe that the majority of Ghanaians will be with us on this issue. Indeed, the same way that most Ghanaians that you will talk to who are not involved with the GMO research or policy are against GMO. So we are very confident that if it comes to the ability for Ghanaians to exercise their rights, the law courts are there all the way up to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to be able to determine. And like I said, in the determination of the last case, Sir Justice Dennis Ajay said, and I repeat, that the law states that GMOs must be differentiated from natural cause or organic, and they must be labeled so that they can afford consumers to make an informed choice.
Okay. Is there a way that Ghanaians can join you in this campaign? Do you have any such strategy?
Well, first of all, for you to know that it is your right to know what is in your food. It is everyone's right to know what's in your food. And educate yourselves. Visit our website and do a lot of research on GMO.
What's the website? And I'm asking because usually, I mean, there's a way that you can reach a lot of Ghanaians via social media. I wanted to find out if there's any such.
Yes, we have a very vibrant Facebook page.
So how can Ghanaians be involved?
Just look for Food Sovereignty Ghana on Facebook. We also have a website, www.foodsovereigntyghana.org. It's a very long word. If you learn to spell food sovereignty, it will help your life. But we have a Facebook page and we have a website. and we're available, but we're doing this for Ghana. We're doing this for Ghana, and
right.
we know that lots of Ghanaians are behind us. When we go to the markets, we go to the taxi drivers, you talk to students. If I have a private conversation with you, I'm sure you would want to know.
Well, this is not a private conversation.
Well, yes, that's why I said if I did have a private conversation with you, I'm sure you'd want to know what's in your food. I certainly want
to know what I'm eating. Yes. I want to be able to make choices,
informed decisions. Especially based on the information that the whole world is giving on the effects of GMO.
Right.
And all over Europe, the demand for organic food is rising. So our problem is that policymakers in Ghana, in thinking forward and being visionary, should see that this is the real avenue to provide employment.
Okay.
So that we'll have a market in Holland, France, Germany, Russia, and so on and so forth. If you go down the GMO way, the consumers today in those countries would want to buy an organic version instead of the Ghanaian GMO pawpaw or Ghanaian GMO pineapple, if that's where we want to go.
Okay. Edwin, thank you so much for coming
into
the studio. And it's all about what you're eating and making those choices this time around. That's what the Food Sovereignty Ghana is saying. They are demanding that the labeling of GMO foods must be implemented. It must be carried through. He says that they've engaged the FDA, that's the Food and Drugs Authority, about this. It appears to them that the Food and Drugs Authority may be going the voluntary way, which is what they're against. They think that it must be mandatory. Label it, name it, let Ghanaians know this is GMO, this is organic, you make your choice.